Good afternoon from Hopalong Hollow. It is 63 degrees on March 3rd here in East Tennessee, and what a glorious day to be outside. We're going to go around and check a few of the things that we planted about a month ago and see what the progress is then. Starting out with our mini greenhouses that we planted about a month ago. This is the golden yarrow, and it's looking pretty good. In about a month, I should see a great improvement here. Almost everything is doing really well. Some things took much longer than others, and I was about to say, I don't think that takes very well in a mini greenhouse. But, for example, the blue sage, it was the first thing I put in a mini greenhouse about 2 weeks before everything else, and it is just now starting, and I don't even know if you can see them in there, but they're in there. They're just now germinating. So some plants definitely will take longer than others, particularly the perennials. So the blue sage is a perennial. The pinks have done great. Even the sweet peas are coming up in this bin right here. They're doing really great. So I've been very happy with these. And if you were planting in trays under lights or in your home, I'm sure they're looking just as good as these or even bigger than this. But the whole point of using the mini greenhouses was to save space for one thing, because these were placed right outside on the courtyard, and now they're in the potager. These are the green peas that we put in the raised bed in the potager under the plastic bottles. And look at how well they're doing. I'm so happy. So they got a really good start right here in place in the garden. I don't have to transplant anything. They are ready to climb. This are coming up, and I sprinkled, at the time, I sprinkled a lot of little California poppy seeds, and if you look very carefully, they're kind of a sage green color. You can see them coming up all throughout the bed. This was another experiment where I directly planted directly into the bed. In this case, we're in the potager still, and I put seeds directly into the soil and then put the cloches on top. And they are doing really well, despite the fact that we've had freezing temperatures over and over again in February. And so these are off to a really good start, and I don't have to transplant anything because here they are right in the garden. Now the same thing with the cloches worked with there are beets, and down in the end are carrots, and then down the middle we have the mini greenhouses, which are all full of flowers and doing pretty well. So I think the mini greenhouses and the cloches really did their job. I'm pretty pleased with them. I know that I will use these methods again. So I also put up a low tunnel at the same time that I made the mini greenhouses, and simply put trays with seeds, and they are also doing pretty well. Most everything in here is germinating with a few exceptions. Some of the pokey joes are taking their sweet time. But this was absolutely no effort at all. Just seeded the trays, put them in the low tunnel, closed it up, and ignored it. I did check it occasionally to see if it needed any moisture, and I watered them maybe 3 times is all I had to, is the only water they needed, and they're doing great too. So this is pretty good in comparison to the mini greenhouses, just as good. This is the ranunculus that I planted from little corms about a month ago. And look at the roots on these. I'm transplanting all of these into clay pots. Now the thing about clay pots is that they're very bad at absorbing water into the clay. So generally when I can, if I can find a pot that'll fit right inside of it that's plastic, I'll use the plastic pot inside of the clay pot. And as the plant grows, this edge will be covered up by all the leaves and flowers. So I planted 55 Ranunculus corms in this tray, and I'm missing about 7 of them, but they still have a chance to come up. As you can see, some of them are quite short still, and little bitty sprouts are coming up through the soil. So I think we may get those 55 after all. But I'm going to put these, there are 3 different colors here. I believe there was Merlot and pink and white. They'll all go in a different pot, and then when they bloom in the pots, I'll be able to move the pots from here to there, so I can take them to the courtyard, put them on the porch, put them on the front steps. It's a good way to just be able to move your plants around rather than having them in the ground in one spot. You can just use these for gorgeous floral happiness and decor all over your place. At the same time as the tulips, those tulips that I planted in the big vessels on the back, little back courtyard. Oh my goodness, I could arrange these around the tulips and they'll be just glorious. So that's something to think about. A very big plus for planting in containers, because you can move them around to where you want them. I mean, they're not stuck in one spot. Wow, look at those roots. These are definitely ready to move. Just look at that beautiful root system. So they are happily transplanted into their clay pots, and also a pail because I had a lot of extras. I'll keep my eye out on the temperature. If it's going to drop below 10 degrees, I will cover these with some cloches. But we should be okay here in East Tennessee. It doesn't really get that cold in March. Have you planted ranunculus before? Let me know if you have and what kind of success you've had. I think planting corms and roots and bulbs and tubers are just the most fantastic things to grow. because the work is basically already been done. Growth has already happened. You're just going to plant it in the right conditions and keep it watered and safe, and then just watch them grow. The old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words is never more accurate than when it comes to a flower. How do you describe a flower? It takes a vast vocabulary, or it takes a picture. Today we're going to talk about the history of seed catalogs, seed boxes, and seed packets. I'm going to start out with a beautiful image and a cup of tea. Today's cups are by Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, fine china. And today's tea, where they also realized that a picture is worth 1,000 words, is Fortnum & Mason apricot honey and lavender in infusion bags. Our teapot is a simple pewter teapot, but what makes it rather unique is that it has engraving in the front that says Harper Cold Tea, which leads me to believe that this was probably an advertising teapot. Pretty special piece. Probably around the 1880s. And I will describe the taste of the tea to you according to Fortnum & Mason. Made with Fortnum's own wildflower-rich Salisbury plain honey, this light floral and mellow infusion combines sweet notes of fruity apricot and honey with calming lavender. I've got a kitty who wants a cup of tea too. The ingredients are rosehip apple licorice root, sweet blackberry leaves, lemon balm, lemon peel, apricot, lavender flowers, and honey flavoring. Get that loaded tea bag. There must be a lot of flavor in this tea. I think most gardeners, especially those that grow from seed, always look forward to the seed catalogs that come in the mail in the middle of winter. It's just one of the exciting parts of being a gardener. Everything from glorious flowers to massive and nutritious and colorful vegetables. Catalogs give you a chance to plan and dream and imagine what the garden will look like. It's not easy to imagine a time before the seed catalogs came along, where you could go right into the store and just look at all the packets on the shelves, hundreds and hundreds of packets. But there was a time when there were no seed catalogs and there were no packets of seeds in the store. And the only way that you could acquire seeds, probably before the 16th century, was to exchange your own seeds and plants with someone else. Catalogs before the mid-18th century were actually very rare, and the ones that were available were only available to the trade. So if you were a nurseryman or you were a gardener on a big estate, you could get the seed catalogs, but they were not available to the general public. Not until around the 1700s. In America, one of the first companies to produce a seed catalog for the general public was Landreth Seed Company. They were the oldest seed house in America, purveyors of fine seeds since 1784. Steader, or even a family with a simple kitchen garden, these publications were absolutely a lifesaver. The first printing of the catalog came out in 1847, and 13,000 publications were sent out. By 1860, they were sending out 600,000 catalogs a year. Now, this Landreth Seed Catalog is actually from 2012, but they're still doing it the old-fashioned way. This is one of the few seed catalogs you actually have to pay for. Unfortunately, I think they sold out to another company, so I'm not sure you can get these anymore. But these old seed catalogs were just simply beautiful, and I think even though now we have some great catalogs that come out, I think Baker Creek has a beautiful catalog, but there's just something about these old ones with their paintings and their lithography that makes them extra special. Just stunningly beautiful artwork. This is a reproduction Burpees from 1888. Let's just take a look at some of the gorgeous images in here. Oh, I flipped to my favorite thing, didn't I? I didn't mean to. But even the images that are in black and white are really gorgeous. And of course, it tells you everything you need to know about planting that seed, the conditions that it needs. Such gorgeous graphics. And every once in a while, they pop in a stunning color lithograph in the middle of the pages. Even the potatoes are artfully done. Look at the headings here. Burpees Ruby King Pepper. And wonderful vegetable art. I love vegetable art. Let's take a look at another one. This is an actual catalog. This is the real thing. Little bit delicate. 1921 from Gurney's, which is still around. Look at that marvelous cover. And the cover's actually coming off. But on the flip side of the cover, here we have, for $1.90, one of each of these 4 varieties of peonies. Can you imagine paying $1.90 for 4 peony roots? You can't get that deal anymore. Old images in here. I wish I could grow a watermelon like that. And just as now, you would have an order form in the book. You pick out your seeds and send in your little order sheet. Just a flyer that was sent out. And this is a reproduction, but it's probably like the deal of the month. And here you can get a dozen good perennials for 50 cents. That's amazing. So you get 12 packets of seed for 50 cents. Dollar bulb offers. For $19.29, you get 6 fine dahlias for $1. And on the back, Scabiosa. 9 packets for 50 cents. So what if you didn't want to order through the mail and you just wanted to get your seeds, packets, right then and there that day? Well, you could always go to the general store or the farm store. So what about the seed packets? As you can see, the seed packets were also embellished with beautiful images and artwork. That is called the brilliance of advertising. Would you not love to grow that in your garden? So who came up with the idea of the seed packets? If you live in America, you may be familiar with the Shakers. The Shakers were a religious sect that created their own self-contained communities where they grew their own food, made their own furniture, and they were so well known for the fact that they made wonderful, wonderful things. They're famous for their Shaker chairs and their Shaker furniture. But another thing they were very famous for were their seeds. And they were very good business people as well. In order to market their seeds to the outside world, they constructed a small paper envelope in order to sell their seeds with an image on the front. And they also constructed a box in order to display the seeds in the stores. Now, this little box is indicative of all the seed companies that came afterwards and the way they designed their boxes. Pretty much similar to the Shaker boxes. Their advertising would be here on the inside of the box. The seeds would be placed upright in the boxes and set on the counter of the store, the general store. You could get an awful lot of seeds in there, actually, I think. Yes, you sure could. And then, of course, the customer would come by, look at the beautiful images on the packet, and take home a little packet of seeds, which in the 1800s probably did not cost very much. So this is one of the smaller seed boxes, and for the vendor, this box full of seeds was $8.50. Here we have a larger box from the same seed company, Mandeville Triple Tested Flower Seeds. This box is larger, would hold a lot more seeds on the countertop, obviously. So this would probably be the basic display for most of the seed boxes. So the store owner would buy the entire box, just like this, filled with packets of seeds and the little cardboard display. This is another seed box of a different size. As you can see, it's a beautiful little oak box this time. And it would have been set up the same way as the box I just showed you. Except in this one, you've got this beautiful graphic on the inside. It even has the bill of the original contents here on the edge. Another $8.50 plus $1. That would probably be for shipping. Whoops, bottom. The vendor was given the prices of the packets. They started at 5 cents a packet, went up to 10 cents a packet, and then 20 cents a packet. I don't know if that is according to the seed type, probably, or maybe the packets were of different sizes. That could also be it. This box was also missing all the parts, the trays and the brackets, but it did contain the directions on how to put it together, should you have it. And as you can see, that the beautiful graphic on the top was left showing, and all the little seed packets nicely contained in this stair-step trays. I've never seen a seed box that actually had all the trays contained inside of it. I guess they just don't last. But these seed boxes, to me, are a real find if you can get one in an antique store. They really are great. Here's another box of just about the same size. Now, if you're antiquing or you're thrifting and you go to a store and you see a box such as this, generally dovetailed, nice little box, but it has no graphics on it, you can just about guarantee that at one point it was a seed box, and you should get it. Because you can turn this into a seed box by simply adding your own graphics. But here we have another one from Mandevilla and King. This is the original box with a different graphic than the other one. But aren't they just beautiful? Just look at the age on this. And there you have the bill of the original content. And oh, this one was more expensive. This one was $14 here. $14.50 plus $1 for shipping, I guess. So, and one more size, which is really a really odd little size. Other size of a seed box. Just keep in mind that if you are looking for seed boxes and they don't have any litho on them or any images, just look for those little dovetailed corners and a box that looks like it would hold something the size of a seed packet. A smaller box has a lovely graphic on it too, but it's faded out quite a bit, and this probably would not have had a display set in it. You simply would have taken their little packets of seeds and stacked them in side by side all the way to the front. That would hold an awful lot of seeds as well. And here we have the piece de resistance of seed boxes. This is my $1.50 auction find about 30 years ago. What a thrill it was to get this beautiful box, because it's from the Colorado Seed House in Denver, and that is where I grew up, was in Colorado. So this was extra special to find this box. And this would have taken up a lot of counter space in a general store, but look at all the seeds that it would have held. And most likely this would have been filled with vegetable seeds, according to the lithograph on the back. But this is about 24 inches by 18 inches. It's a very big box. A brief history of seed catalogs, seed packets, and seed boxes. Now, if you're on the lookout for old seed boxes, what would you expect to pay? Now, if you can find one with the graphics that are pretty much intact, expect to pay at least $100, because these have really gone up in price over the last couple of years, and I think it's just because gardening has taken on a new meaning these days. Now, when I bought most of these, I got a pretty good deal on them, especially my $1.50 find here. That doesn't happen too often. So, if you can find one for under $100, I would snatch it up. If you can find just the box without any graphics, purchase the box. Because if you can find some old reproduction flower seed packets, you can line the interior of the box with them. And you'll have the same look. It just won't be fully vintage, but that's okay. Who cares? You still have the same look. Now, let's go out and plant some seeds. Earlier in the video, I talked about the success of using the mini greenhouses, also sowing directly into the ground with the protection of cloches and bell jars, and then using a low tunnel. That's to get a really early start in the garden, starting in January and February. But now it's March, and you can still use those methods depending on where you live. Of beginner gardeners, and I know there are many beginner gardeners that watch this channel, I want to just go over a few of the more traditional ways for you to start your garden early in the house by planting in the more traditional way of trays and pellets. And those of you that are experienced gardeners, of course, you know all this already, but we do have a lot of beginners out there that are new to gardening, and so I'm just going to briefly go over a few different ways to plant your seeds in the house to get an early start. First, you've got your little compartmentalized plastic trays that you can purchase like this, or if you purchased some bedding plants and you saved these, don't ever throw these away because you might want to be using them again. These were just saved, I think, from pansies I purchased last year. So I'm just using my own soil mixture, which I will give you the ingredients for that. I am moistening the soil, and I am tucking the soil right into the compartments. You can grow directly in those. Or you can just take a tray and sprinkle your seeds throughout the entire thing, or poke holes in if you've got bigger seeds, and drop your little seeds in and use this method. Or something that I really love are these pellets. I kind of like, maybe I just like to watch them grow. Just sprinkle them like this. I think these are so easy. You can purchase these in any gardening center. You can purchase these online in bulk. And all you're going to do is get some nice warm water, get your little pellets in a nice tray where they have about an inch of water, and they're going to expand, and you're going to plant directly into that little pellet. So, oops. Let's get this one wet too. And then it's just as easy as this. Follow the directions on your seed packet. Now here's the important thing. Read your seed packet, because if it's a good company, they will give you all the information you need right on your seed packet. This is my favorite seed company, Ever Wild Farms. They are absolutely my favorite. I like them because you can buy seeds in bulk for one thing, and I like their packaging, which is keeps your seeds viable for a long time. I also like the fact that they have so much information on the back of their pack. So here we have a dwarf mixed cosmos. Sow outside in spring, 0.1 inches deep. It wants full sun. It'll go 30 inches tall, and it's an annual. If you're a beginner, you might not know what that means, that this is an annual. So let me explain that. An annual is a plant that only grows for one season. But many annuals will drop seed, so they will self-seed in the garden, and you may not have to plant them again in that particular spot. And for me, the most prolific self-seeders are larkspur, poppies, and foxglove. Now, foxglove is not an annual. It is what's called a biennial. Canterbury bells is a biennial, as is foxglove, as are hollyhocks. They're biennials, which means they bloom the second year. The first year, they will germinate, they will grow, and they will put out a lot of foliage. And they will continue to grow over the next year. And then it's the second year that you will get your flowers. And then your flowers will generally self-seed right into your garden. And as we've experienced here, we've got all kinds of self-seeded larkspur, hollyhocks, and foxglove. Canterbury bells have not been that great for me. And this is something, because I really want to make sure these do well, I will plant them in the house, in pellets, in trays, so that way I can keep an eye on them. So here are a few biennials. You've got foxglove, hollyhock, English wallflowers, Dame's rocket. Those are just a few. And of course the Canterbury bells. Oh, there's no, black hollyhocks. Got your perennials, and your perennials are your plants that will come back year after year. Once they get established, they will just come back for you year after year. So there are many, many perennials, but let's just talk about what I have here. I have cottage pinks, which are like little bitty carnations, and carnations as well. This is a really wonderful old-fashioned cottage flower. And also Sweet William, also known as Sweet William. So this, you could start directly in your garden. You could sow these seeds right in your garden. But if you don't know where you want to put them yet, or you're a new gardener and you just want to watch the process of the germination, and you want to keep an eye on the plants, and you really want to be a part of their growth up close and personal, then plant them in trays, and that way you can really get a feel for how things grow, what they look like as seedlings, and so on. So here we just have a few others. We have a St. John's wort, and lupin, and borage, which is actually more of an herb, bergamot, an herb. Just a lot of wonderful, wonderful plants. I can't even begin to tell you how many perennials there are, but here's one I'm in particular in love with, and this is blue sage. So I'm definitely planting a lot of these in trays so that I can, as I advised you to do, keep a close eye on them, watch them as they grow, and just be their stewards until they're ready to go right into your garden. There's another reason why you may not want to take one particular piece of advice on a seed packet, and that is when it says direct sow. Well, there's certain plants that I have direct sown for years and that I never see the plant again. Never. One of them, believe it or not, some people have great luck with cosmos, but for some reason, I think the birds get my seed. I don't know what happens. So I buy large packets. This is actually pretty big packet of cosmos. So I will not only direct sow it, but I'm also going to sow it in my trays or my pellets. That way I'm going to be sure that I'm going to get the plants, and there won't be any question about it. I will have the plants because I will be taking care of them myself. Another reason you want to sow in a tray is, what if you bought a packet of seeds, which was fairly expensive. There were only 25 seeds in this packet, and I believe it was close to $4. Well, I really want this flower, so I'm not taking any chances of sprinkling it on the in the soil, even though it could be direct sown, and then letting some kind of little creature eat it, or I don't know. The birds are out right now, and they definitely are looking for seeds in the garden. So keep that in mind too. If you have an expensive packet of seeds and you really, really want to make sure that you have them in your garden this year, put them in trays or pellets. This is I can't wait to see this. Now I've got this up in a little greenhouse up in the bathroom, which I'll show you in a few minutes. This is a pink dandelion, and we have such disdain for dandelions that we don't realize the really, really weren't originally considered a weed. So this one is a pink dandelion, and this also was a fairly expensive pack because it's new. But this is one I want to keep my eye on. Got it growing upstairs, and they've germinated, so let's see what happens with that. Be partial to these pellets, and here's why. Once it expands a little bit, I don't have one that's full size yet. That one's getting there. You can, once your little seedlings are tall enough and big enough, you can put that little pellet right into your garden, plant it right into your garden if you wish, instead of having to dig out, kind of like to dig it out of these plastic trays or sort of pinch them out of these full-size trays. But I suggest that you try all of these methods and see what you like best. We talked about planting in containers and clay pots and vessels and not having to transplant them into your garden. Well, you can do the same thing with your seeds. Why not plant some seeds directly in a pot and leave them there? For example, this lovely vessel, I think, would be beautiful with some California poppies planted in here. So I'm just taking my vessels, I'm putting some drainage in the bottom, which in the form of broken crockery or stones. I'm going to fill it with my potting mix. I'm going to sprinkle some seed on top, and I'm just going to let the little flowers grow right in the pot and stay there rather than putting them in the garden. So I've chosen a few annuals and one herb to put in these containers. And I've chosen them because of their height, because they're all pretty short. So the chives are 14 inches tall. The Chinese forget-me-nots are a little taller than everybody else and kind of grow in a haphazard way. And these are 20 inches, yes, 20 inches. So I'm putting these in a pot. Now in this pot already are 10 purple tulips, but by the time those tulips are done, the forget-me-nots will be coming up. Or maybe even at the same time, who knows? This sweet mignonette is a wonderful old-fashioned flower that isn't all that beautiful, but it does smell lovely, and so you want it nearby so that you can get a whiff of that wonderful scent. And these are only 10 inches tall, so we'll put those in a pot. And then catchfly is also an annual which grows 18 inches tall, so we will also put those in a pot. So, once again, we're going to follow the directions on the seed packet. We're not sowing it outside, we're sowing it right here in this bucket. 0.1 inches deep. Heavens, I don't know what 0.1 inches deep is, but they're fairly good seeds. And according to the size of the seed, that gives you a pretty good indication of how deep to plant it. It'd be twice as deep as the size of the seed. Well, that's kind of hard to judge, but I'm just going to sprinkle these on the top, hither and thither. Oops. In a rather haphazard manner. And then I'm going to sprinkle the top. That's pretty thick. That's pretty thick. Let's spread them out a little more. There. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of peat, and I'm going to cover them up with the peat. Then I'm going to give them a nice soak with a watering can. And because this is going to be left outside and it still could get cold, I'm going to cover these with a cloche. James built this little greenhouse over 10 years ago, and it's weathered many a storm. This year I went in here and reinforced it a bit because it was getting a little wiggly and jiggly through all the weather that it's been through, but it's simply made with windows, whatever windows you can find at the salvage store. You can take those windows, sand them down and make them all nice and pretty and paint them, or you can leave them as is, which we obviously did, because I like the chipping paint and all that. Now, these may seem like they were a trend about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, but these are a very useful item, so they're not really a trend. They hold a lot. This one has 5 shelves in it. It's a pretty small one, but it still holds a lot of seed trays. So this is a great remedy if you don't have a real greenhouse and you don't have enough room in your house to get your little plants going, because this does hold a lot of heat. Now, it does have to have ventilation, and the ventilation on mine is on the top shelf because the top shelf is completely open. And because the sides are completely open on this top section of the mini greenhouse, I did cover these seeded pots with cloches because we still could get frost, we still could get some bad weather. So the ones on the top are protected with cloches. Get your hands on some old windows, and they really are quite easy to find. Salvage yards, thrift stores, antique shops, so all of them sell these old paned windows. And like I said, it's pretty simple to put this together. It's nothing but a box, and it has a door, of course, a slanted lid which also lifts up. So these really are rather charming and useful at the same time. Before I say goodbye for the day, I told you in the last video to hold on to your flowers that you got for Valentine's Day. And if you did get roses or carnations, you'll want to hang them upside down and dry them. And when they're thoroughly dry, you might want to take those little petals and start yourself a batch of potpourri. So you can toss those in your potpourri box. You can snap off the heads of the carnations, and you can save these for carnation seeds. And then, with the stems, you can make cuttings from the stems of the roses and the carnations. So by taking this particular carnation and clipping it above the second little knot, you can see here we've already got a little leaf coming out. So after you've cut it, you can either set that in a little jar of water or straight into some potting soil. And you can already see that it's got a tiny little side shoot coming out here. But I'm just going to set it into some soil, keep it watered. And as you can see, we've got a couple here that are putting out new leaves. So you might get some free plants out of it. Carnations make beautiful little dried flowers, and eventually you'll be able to get seed from them and plant those in your trays or out in your garden. So, from Hopalong Hollow, this is Jerry, and we will see you next time. Bye.